Hello, survivors. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, if you enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. Also, tell us in the comments which city you're listening from. It's great to see how far our community reaches. Now, let's start the story. The coffee tasted like burnt regret, standard issue for the 3 a.m. shift start. I checked my duty belt for the 10th time. Glock 22 secure, 2 spare magazines, cuffs, flashlight, radio clipped tight. Outside the barracks window, the pre-dawn darkness over Interstate 81 was absolute, broken only by the rhythmic pulse of the gas station sign across the access road. Another Thursday shift patrolling the lonely stretch between Cedar Ridge and the state line. My name's Ray Morrow, State Highway Patrol. 7 years on the job. Long enough to know these graveyard shifts were usually 90% boredom and 10% routine traffic stops. Tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way Sergeant Miller had clapped me on the shoulder before heading home. His usual gruffness replaced with a tight, worried look. "Keep your head on a swivel tonight, Morrow," he'd said. "Dispatch is lit up like Christmas, weird calls coming in from down south." Or maybe it was just the coffee. The first hour was dead quiet, just the hum of the Charger's engine, the crackle of the radio relaying mundane updates from other units, the hypnotic white lines spooling under my headlights. Standard procedure. Maintain visibility, be ready to respond. Around 4:15 a.m., the first call came that wasn't routine. "All units in Sector Charlie be advised, reports of a major multi-vehicle accident. I-81 northbound near mile marker 112. Multiple callers reporting erratic driving prior to collision, possible fatalities. EMS and fire en route." Mile marker 112. That was 20 miles south, pushing the edge of my patrol sector. But I was the closest unit showing available. Trooper Morrow, 18 Charlie responding. ETA approximately 18 minutes. I radioed back, flipping on the lights and pushing the accelerator. The Charger ate up the miles, the familiar whine of the engine a comforting sound against the backdrop of the dispatcher's increasingly tense updates. Callers reporting individuals walking away from the crash scene, unresponsive. Fire. Command reporting difficulty accessing the scene, vehicles blocking all lanes. Shots fired reported near the accident scene, source unknown. UMS Unit 4 requesting immediate police backup, medical personnel under attack. Under attack. At an accident scene. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Domestics spilling onto the highway, road rage. Nothing made sense. As I crested the last hill before mile marker 112, the scene came into view, and my blood ran cold. It wasn't just an accident, it was carnage. Cars were everywhere, smashed together at impossible angles, some overturned, one burning fiercely, casting flickering orange light across the wreckage. But it was the people. Figures moved through the debris with jerky, unnatural movements. Some were hunched over downed figures on the pavement, tearing at them. Others staggered aimlessly, ignoring the flames, ignoring the flashing lights of the first responding fire truck, which now sat abandoned. Its doors open, cabin empty. "Dispatch, 18 Charlie on scene," I transmitted, my voice tight. "Confirming multi-vehicle accident with multiple hostile individuals attacking emergency personnel and civilians. Requesting immediate backup. All available units." 18 Charlie. Backup is limited. The dispatcher's strained voice came back. Units responding to multiple incidents, citywide. State Police Command advising all personnel exercise extreme caution. Reports indicate hostile subjects may be difficult to subdue. Difficult to subdue? What the hell did that mean? I parked my cruiser back from the main wreckage, using it as cover, shotgun loaded and ready. Through my rifle scope, I got a closer look at the figures moving through the debris. Their skin had a gray, waxy pallor under the emergency lights. Eyes milky white or solid black. Mouths stained dark. Some had horrific injuries. Missing limbs, gaping wounds. Yet they moved with relentless purpose, focused only on the living who were desperately trying to fight back or flee. One figure, A man in a torn business suit took a direct hit from a panicked civilian wielding a tire iron. The impact crumpled the suit, should have broken bones, but the figure barely flinched, just turned its head with a sickening crackle and lunged. Then I saw the biting. Everywhere, figures latching onto victims, tearing at flesh with teeth. It wasn't random violence, it was focused, predatory, almost feeding. A fire captain stumbled back from his truck, clutching his arm, blood pouring between his fingers. Before he could react, 3 of the gray-skinned figures were on him, dragging him down, their teeth sinking into his neck and face. His screams were lost in the cacophony of sirens, crunching metal, and the horrible, wet, guttural sounds the attackers were making. Zombie outbreak. The thought slammed into my mind, absurd and terrifying. This wasn't a riot, this wasn't drugs. This was something ripped straight from the horror movies Sergeant Miller and I sometimes watched during quiet shifts. But this was real. The blood was real. The screams were real. I saw movement near an overturned minivan. A woman was trying to pull a child from the wreckage. 2 of the infected were converging on her, moving with that horrifying, lurching speed. Training took over. Sight, picture, trigger control, breathe. The shotgun bucked against my shoulder. The first round caught the lead infected in the chest. It stumbled but kept coming. Headshots. Miller's voice from somewhere, maybe a past training session, maybe my own panicked subconscious. Headshots only. I adjusted aim, pumped the action, fired again. The second infected's head exploded in a spray of dark fluid and bone fragments. It dropped instantly. The first one reached the woman just as I chambered another round. Too late for a clean shot. I fired anyway, the buckshot tearing into its shoulder and neck. It staggered, momentarily distracted, giving the woman just enough time to pull the child free and scramble away towards the tree line off the highway's shoulder. The gunshot drew attention. More heads turned towards me, those vacant eyes fixing on my position. They started moving, a wave of gray flesh and tattered clothes shambling, then breaking into that unnatural sprint across the wreckage-strewn highway. Time to go. 18, Charlie. Disengaging from scene, I yelled into the radio, already backing towards my cruiser. Hostiles unresponsive to body shots. Head trauma required to neutralize. Repeat, head trauma required. Static answered. I didn't wait for confirmation. I dove into the Charger, slammed it into reverse, tires squealing on the asphalt as I spun around. In the rearview mirror, the horde poured over the wreckage, accelerating towards me. I floored it, heading north, away from the chaos, away from the impossible reality unfolding behind me. My heart hammered against my ribs. My hands shook on the wheel. 7 years on the force, seen plenty of bad stuff, but nothing like this. The first day of the end of the world and I was driving right into it. The radio remained a chaotic mess. Dispatch struggled to coordinate responses, their voices growing increasingly frayed. Reports flooded in, barricades overrun, officers down, strange calls about people trapped in their own homes, unable to leave. The initial narrative of a localized outbreak dissolved into a terrifying pattern spreading across the state, then the region. National Guard confirming roadblocks, established on all major arteries out of Edgewood. Harrisburg under martial law. Philadelphia reporting widespread, static. I passed more abandoned vehicles, occasional small clusters of infected drawn to the wrecks like flies to carrion. I avoided engagement whenever possible, conserving ammunition, sticking to protocol, observe and report. But reporting was becoming useless. Channels were jammed or simply silent. A call came through specifically for my sector. Unit 18 Charlie, respond to rest area, mile marker 135. Reports of shots fired, possible hostage situation. Mile marker 135, 15 miles ahead. Normally a straightforward response. Now, it felt like driving into the belly of the beast. But duty called, or habit, or maybe just the need to do something other than run. 18. Charlie responding, I keyed the mic, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. The rest area was one of those Older ones, set back from the highway, usually populated by truckers catching sleep or families stretching their legs. As I pulled onto the access ramp, I saw flashing lights. Not police, but the hazard lights of a dozen cars and trucks parked haphazardly around the main building. The doors to the building were shattered. I parked behind a large tractor trailer, giving myself cover, and exited the cruiser, shotgun ready. Silence, too silent. No gunfire, no shouting. Just the wind rustling leaves in the nearby trees. I moved cautiously toward the building, using parked vehicles for cover. Through a broken window, I saw overturned tables, scattered food wrappers, dark stains on the floor. No movement inside. Then, a flicker of motion near the restrooms at the far end of the building. A figure emerged, stumbling into the weak morning light filtering through the trees. It was a young woman, maybe early 20s, clothes torn, one arm clutched tight to her chest. She saw me, her eyes widening, not with the vacant hunger of the infected, but with terror. Real, human terror. "Help me," she sobbed, taking a step towards me. "Please, they're still in there." I kept my shotgun level. "Stay right there. Are you injured? Are you bitten?" My voice was harsher than I intended, the cop training overriding bedside manner. No, I swear," she cried, holding up her hands. "I hid in a stall. They got everyone else." Her body shook with violent tremors. "My boyfriend, David, he tried to fight them." From inside the building, a low moan echoed, followed by shuffling footsteps. They knew she was out here. They knew I was out here. "Get behind me," I ordered, gesturing her back towards my cruiser. "Move." She scrambled behind me just as two infected emerged from the restroom doorway. One was easily recognizable as a trucker, large frame, flannel shirt ripped open revealing a massive bite wound on his shoulder. The other was smaller, possibly a teenager, its jaw hanging at an unnatural angle. They saw us and charged. I didn't hesitate. "Pump, fire." The trucker's head vanished. "Pump, fire." The teenager dropped beside him. More sounds from inside. How many were there? "To the car," I yelled, grabbing the woman's arm, pulling her along. We sprinted across the parking lot. I glanced. Crime. More infected were pouring out of the main building entrance now, alerted by the shots. 6, 7, maybe more. They moved faster than the ones at the accident scene. Had they evolved already, or were these fresher? We reached the cruiser. "Get in, lock the doors," I yelled, turning to face the approaching horde providing cover fire. Pump, fire, another headshot. Pump, fire, missed. Damn it, they were closing fast. I fired my last shell, dropping one more. Then drew my Glock, emptying the magazine with controlled pairs into the remaining infected. 2 more went down permanently. The others staggered but kept coming, bullets punching through torsos and limbs, without slowing them. I dove into the driver's seat as the first one reached the car, slamming the door just as clawed fingers scraped against the window. The woman, I didn't even know her name yet, screamed as faces pressed against the glass, teeth snapping. I threw the car into reverse, tires spitting gravel, then slammed it into drive, accelerating hard back towards the highway ramp. Bodies thumped against the car, but we broke through. In the rearview mirror, the remaining infected stumbled after us for a few yards before their attention seemed to drift, drawn perhaps by some other unseen stimulus. Safe for now. The woman beside me was sobbing, hyperventilating. Hey, look at me," I said, keeping one eye on the road, one on her. "Deep breaths. You're okay now. We're okay. What's your name?" "Sarah," she choked out between sobs. Not my Sarah, obviously, but the name sent another pang of worry through me. "David, they just tore him apart." "I know," I said softly. "I'm sorry. Right now we need to focus on staying alive. Where were you headed?" "Home," she whispered. "Columbus, visiting my parents." Columbus was south, back the way I'd come, back towards the initial chaos. Not an option. "We need to head north," I told her. "Military is setting up checkpoints, evacuation routes, that's our best bet." She nodded numbly, staring out at the passing landscape, now looking unnervingly empty. The usual flow of traffic. had completely vanished. We passed mile marker after mile marker with no other vehicles in sight. The silence on the radio was absolute now, not even static. It felt like we were the only two people left on this stretch of I-81. Then, my dashboard comm unit crackled, not the main radio. The secure channel, direct link to State Police Command. A voice I recognized. Captain Hayes, my troop commander. Trooper. Morrow, report status. His voice was clipped, strained. Captain, sir, I'm 18 Charlie. Northbound on I-81, approx mile marker 142. I replied, relief flooding me. Encountered multiple hostile individuals at MM-112 accident scene and MM-135 rest area. Confirming reports. Subjects reanimate after death. Require head trauma to neutralize. I have one civilian survivor with me. Requesting sit-rep and rendezvous point. A long pause. Then Hayes' voice, tight with tension. Morrow, listen carefully. The situation is fluid. Command structure is fragmented. We're coordinating with National Guard, but communications are failing. Edgewood is lost. Cedar Ridge is reporting heavy outbreaks. We're consolidating remaining personnel at designated fallback points. Where, sir? Where do we go? Nearest. Secure location is the old Wayland textile mill off exit 155, Hayes said. Used to be a Cold War continuity of government site. Reinforced structure, underground levels. We're trying to establish a command post there. Can you reach it? Exit 155, maybe 10 miles ahead. Yes, sir. We're en route. Good. One more thing, Morrow. Hayes hesitated. The transmission vector. It's not just bytes. Airborne components suspected in enclosed spaces. Maintain air filtration in your vehicle. Avoid contaminated structures if possible. And Morrow. His voice dropped. Trust no one until verified. We've had breaches. Infected personnel mimicking behavior. Be careful. The transmission. Cut out. Airborne. Mimicking behavior. The nightmare just kept getting worse. I glanced at Sarah beside me. She looked pale, exhausted, but her breathing was steady, her eyes clear. No obvious signs of infection, but Hayes' warning echoed. Trust no one. The Wayland textile mill appeared ahead, a hulking brick structure set back from the highway, surrounded by overgrown fields and a rusting chain-link fence. No lights were visible, no military vehicles. It looked deserted. This, is it? Sarah asked nervously. Supposed to be, I replied, slowing the cruiser, scanning the perimeter. Stay alert. I keyed the secure comm channel again. Command 18 Charlie approaching Wayland Mill fallback point. Request confirmation of security. Static. Only static. Something was wrong. Hayes had been clear. This was the rendezvous. Where were the troops? The other officers? I parked the cruiser near the main gate, which hung open, torn from its hinges. Engine idling, shotgun ready, I scanned the building. A single light flickered in an upper window. Movement? Hard to tell. Maybe. They're inside, Sarah suggested. Maybe, I said, but my gut screamed trap. Wait here. Lock the doors. If anything happens, drive. Head north on 81. Don't stop. But that's an order, Sarah, I said, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. I grabbed the shotgun and stepped out into the unnerving quiet. The air here smelled wrong, dust, decay, and that faint, sweet rot. I moved towards the main entrance, boots crunching on gravel. The heavy wooden doors were scarred, splintered near the lock, but closed. I pushed gently. They swung inward with a low groan revealing darkness beyond. Hello, I called out, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. State Patrol! Is anyone here, Captain Hayes? Silence. Then a soft chuckle echoed from deep within the cavernous space. It wasn't human. It was wet, guttural, filled with predatory amusement. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a fallback point, it was a nest. Hayes had sent me into a trap, or Hayes wasn't Hayes anymore. Trust no one. I backed away slowly, raising the shotgun. More movement inside. Shadows detaching themselves from deeper darkness shuffling forward. Multiple figures. Their eyes caught the flashlight beam, glowing with that hellish red light. They weren't wearing uniforms. They weren't wearing recognizable clothes. They looked wrong. Skin stretched too tight over sharp bones, limbs too long, mouths splitting into needle-filled grins. These weren't the recently infected. These were something older, something worse. A voice slithered out from the darkness, echoing around me. "Welcome, officer. We've been expecting you. The captain sends his regards." It chuckled again, the sound scraping against my nerves. He's joined us now, such potential. I fired the shotgun, the blast echoing like thunder in the cavernous space. The lead figure staggered, its grin widening as the buckshot tore through its chest without apparent effect. Behind it, others surged forward. I turned and ran, sprinting, back towards the cruiser. "Drive!" I screamed as I yanked the passenger door open. "Drive now!" Sarah slammed the accelerator. Tires spun on the gravel, then caught, launching us back towards the highway just as the figures poured out of the mill entrance, moving with impossible speed, their forms seeming to blur and stretch in the twilight. One leaped onto the trunk, long claws scraping against the metal, its distorted face pressing against the rear window. Sarah swerved violently, throwing it off. We fishtailed onto the highway, heading north again, the abandoned mill receding. The rearview mirror. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now. Hayes was one of them. Command was compromised. There were no safe zones, no fallback points, just the spreading infection, the rising tide of the dead, and entities that could mimic human command structures, leading survivors into traps. "Where do we go now?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. I looked at the setting sun, painting the clouds in fiery hues. Then I looked at the shotgun on the seat beside me, the dwindling box of shells. We had maybe 6 hours of darkness left. "We find somewhere defensible," I said, my voice hard. "We scavenge supplies, and we survive the night." I thought of my own family hundreds of miles away, unreachable, unknowable. Then I added more to myself than to her. We figure out how to fight back. The first day was ending, but the war was just beginning. We drove north on I-81 as darkness fell completely. The highway unnervingly empty. The silence on the radio was absolute. No emergency broadcasts, no military chatter, no civilian pleas. It was as if the world beyond our headlights had ceased to exist. Sarah drove while I kept watch, shotgun across my lap. Every flicker of movement in the woods lining the highway, every abandoned car on the shoulder felt like a potential threat. "We need to get off the interstate," I said after an hour of tense silence. "It's too exposed. We need somewhere we can fortify, even temporarily." I scanned the map on the cruiser's console, looking for smaller state routes, secondary roads. There, Route 3I-22 West, leads into denser forest, state game lands. Less population, maybe fewer obstacles. Sarah nodded, taking the next exit ramp. Route 322 was a 2-lane blacktop winding through rolling hills and thick woods. We passed darkened farmhouses, small towns where the only light came from burning buildings. Twice we had to maneuver around clusters of infected drawn to porch, lights or flickering televisions visible through windows. They turned their heads as we passed, dead eyes tracking our headlights, but didn't pursue. It seemed their primary instinct was drawn to closer, more immediate stimuli. "They seem less aggressive out here," Sarah observed. "Fewer living targets to agitate them," I guessed. Or maybe the consciousness transference thing Hayes, the thing pretending to be Hayes, mentioned is weaker without a dense neural network to feed on. It was a wild guess based on a fragment of a potentially compromised transmission, but it was all we had. We found our temporary sanctuary around midnight, an isolated state gamelands maintenance depot, a single-story cinder-block building, a garage with heavy steel doors, and a tall radio relay tower, all surrounded by a sturdy chain-link fence. The gate was locked, but easily bypassed with bolt cutters from my trunk kit. Inside, the depot was deserted but functional. Power was out, but a backup generator sat waiting, fuel cans nearby. More importantly, the building felt clean. No blood, no signs of struggle, no lingering scent of rot. Just dust and the smell of old oil. "Secure the perimeter," I told Sarah while I checked the building. "Barricade the gate with one of the service trucks if you can." She nodded, surprisingly calm now, perhaps numb from the day's horrors. While she worked outside, I explored the depot. A small office, a break, room with stale coffee grounds still in the maker, a workshop filled with tools and a radio room. The equipment was older than at the tower I'd been assigned 2 years ago, but it looked functional, if I could get the generator running. It took half an hour, but the generator sputtered to life, bathing the depot in the harsh glow of fluorescent lights. The radio console lit up. I ran through the frequencies, police, fire, military, civilian bands. Nothing but static. The silence was absolute. The world had gone quiet. Sarah came back inside, face smudged with grease. "Gates blocked. Shouldn't stop anything determined, but it'll slow them down." She looked around the radio room. "Anything?" "Nothing." I shook my head. Either we're too far out or there's no one left broadcasting, or the infection had taken out the infrastructure completely. We found some canned food in the break room lockers, expired probably, but better than nothing. We ate in silence, the only sound the hum of the generator and the wind outside. "What do we do now, Jake?" Sarah asked finally, pushing aside her half-eaten can of cold beans. Her name wasn't Jake, it was Ray, but correcting her seemed pointless now. "Wait here? Try to reach another city?" "Waiting here isn't an option," I said. "This place is temporary. They'll find us eventually. The infected, they're drawn to light, sound, the living." I thought about the creature mimicking haze, the mention of mimics at the shelter. And maybe they're drawn to patterns too, routines. Staying put makes us predictable. So we keep moving? We head west, I decided, looking at the map again. Away from the major population centers. Find somewhere truly isolated, defensible. Mountains, maybe. Stock up on supplies along the way. Avoid contact. "And your sister, Clara?" Her voice was soft. I looked away, staring at the silent radio console. "Edgewood is gone, Sarah. The hospital. It was one of the first places hit. If she made it out, there's no way to know. No way to find her right now." The words felt like stones in my throat. Duty had forced me north, away from her. Guilt was a luxury I couldn't afford, but it settled heavy nonetheless. Right now, our only job is to survive, to keep moving. We rested in shifts through the remainder of the night. Sarah took the first watch while I tried to catch a few hours of sleep on a lumpy office couch, shotgun within reach. Sleep offered no escape, filled with images of milky eyes, snapping teeth, and Captain Hayes's dead smile. I woke abruptly near dawn, shotgun instinctively coming up. Sarah stood in the doorway, her face pale in the dim light. "Something's outside," she whispered, "at the fence, watching." I joined her at the boarded-up window, peering through a crack. In the pre-dawn gloom, several figures stood motionless, just beyond the chain-link fence. They weren't shuffling, weren't moaning, they were just standing there, watching the building, waiting. And they weren't the usual infected. These figures were taller, thinner, their limbs elongated, features indistinct shadows beneath hoods or obscured by the low light. They didn't look like reanimated corpses. They looked like something else entirely, something that had come after. "They're different," Sarah breathed. "Yeah," I agreed, my hand tightening on the shotgun. "They're learning, adapting. Or maybe these were the parasitic intelligence the voice on the radio had mentioned. Not the puppets, but the puppeteers." One of the figures raised a long, thin arm, pointing directly at our window. It didn't make a sound, but I felt its gaze lock onto mine, cold, intelligent, and filled with an ancient hunger that had nothing to do with flesh. The first day was over. We had survived the initial wave, the chaos of societal collapse. But, as I stared back at the silent watching figures beyond the fence, I knew the real horror wasn't just the mindless dead. It was whatever was controlling them, whatever ancient intelligence had been unleashed upon the world. And it knew we were here. The rules of survival were changing again. We had survived the outbreak. Now we had to survive the aftermath and the things that thrived within it.